The mass is going to be the amount of what? Mass is going to be equal to the amount of what? Sort of. Amount of what? Amount of what?
It's going to be the amount of force point on gravitational force.
Mass is not the gravitational pull. And what was the other word we used?
Atoms.
No. Look at your notebooks. What did we say mass was?
Matter?
And is the amount of matter?
It's the grams.
Measured in grams?
Gravitational force.
No. Look in your notebooks. What did we say mass was? Those of you at home, did anybody have it in your notebooks? What is mass? Okay. So it's that push or pull, right? Okay. Weight, though, is the gravitational pull, right?
Wow.
Okay? It's that gravitational pull.
Miss Allen,
Yes.
I don't know how to get to Mrs. Kaufman science class.
You don't have to. I'm the one doing all the virtual science.
Oh, okay.
So we take turns doing the virtual science, so you stay with me.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So when we talk about the difference between mass and weight, our weight is going to change because we will get farther away from Earth. Our mass is not going to change because it doesn't have anything to do with that gravitational pull, right? Does that make sense? Okay. So this twirling piece there I don't really care about. Oh.
Mass versus weight. Two measures for an object. They're not the same, let's all see why. To determine the mass, we use a balance to do it. We use a scale to measure mass. Measure it in grams or in kilograms. It's all about how much stuff the object has. Grams or kilograms.
All I know is about the original.
Use for math. Millions of the way. It's a measure of gravity's pull on the object. So you can see, mass and weight aren't the same thing. Weight is a measure of gravity. In contrast to weight, mass tells us how much matter the object has. out how much stuff the object has.
She's right down the lyrics.
Bum, bum, bum.
They're the units we use for math. Newton's awful way.
Bum, bum, bum.
Let's stop the gravity's pull on the object. Mass and wave, they're not the same. Mass and wave, they are not the same. Mass and wave, they are not the same. Grams a kilogram.
Bum, bum, bum.
They're the units we use for math. Newton's awful way.
Bum, bum, bum.
Weights the measure of gravity's pull on the object, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, you might want to put it with your mass. That mass is how much matter the object has. Okay.
God.
So mass is how much object the matter has, or how much matter the object has.
Yeah.
All right. So get that down in your notes. Mass is how much matter the object has.
Yeah.
Get that in your notes. Mass is how much matter the object has. What do you need? Mass is not how much space it takes up. Mass is how much matter the object has. All right. Any questions from home on that definition? Caleb Poe, you have to be in view. I told you that this morning as well. Eduardo, you've got to be in view, please. All right, so keeping that in mind, okay, we're going to do a little bit of reviewing next before we go on to our next assignment. We're going to do some reviewing over the concepts that we've already had so that we can make sure that we understand where we come from in this particular chapter. Because tomorrow is our test, and we need to make sure we understand all of our different concepts that we've had so far. Okay? So I want you to have a clean sheet of paper so that we can distinguish between what we've talked about and your understanding of everything. All right? You've been able to use your definition work, right? You've been working on that, right? In Quizlet, right? Hello, how many of you been doing that? Yeah. Practicing that, all right? So the whole unit is on matter. Okay. One of the things we talked about with matter was we talked about it had physical changes and it had chemical changes, right? So it had physical and chemical changes. These were all changes that it had. Ricky? some of the physical changes that we talked about? Some of the physical changes we talked about. What were some of those?
Okay.
Give me a word. Give me a word.
This.
Now give me a word. Give me a word for a physical change.
Crumpling paper.
Burning it.
What's another physical change? Ripping. What was another physical change? Isaiah? What? Okay. What's another physical change? What's another physical change? Avery.
Making paper airplanes.
So what were we doing to it?
We are folding it.
So folding. Okay. Folding. So in all of the physical changes, we didn't change the makeup, right? Okay? It was still, when we did this, we did it with paper, right? So all of these we did to paper, right? All of these describe stuff we did with paper, right?
Yes.
Okay, we did physical change with paper. But we didn't just talk about physical change with paper, we talked about it with some other things as well, didn't we? Okay? What were some other physical changes that we could do?
I'm gonna say freezing off.
Could we freeze and melt things?
Yeah.
Okay? And what was one thing we did that to? What was one substance we did that with? What did we do that with? What did we do that with? What did we freeze and melt? Water, yeah. So we did that with water. Okay. That was one thing we took a look at. Okay. All right. So those are physical changes. All right. But then we also talked about chemical changes. We touched on that as well. And when we did a chemical change, that meant that we changed the makeup, right? Okay, we changed the makeup of it, right? What were some things that we talked about when we did the chemical change? The chemical change. Chemical change. What was one thing we mentioned in chemical change?
Here's a different blowing down.
Okay, but what was something we talked about when we talked about chemical change? What was an example of chemical change? What was one of the things we talked about when we talked about chemical change?
Electrocution?
About that.
Like melting or burning it.
No, we didn't talk about melting it, because that was under,
Oh. Some kids.
Gas.
no, we talked about rust.
Right.
We talked about tomato ripening, right? Getting ripe, okay. Change, did a chemical change there.
What about evaporation?
Excuse me?
Evaporation.
Evaporation.
When it evaporates.
When it evaporates, that would be that water freezing, melting, or evaporating, because it would still be a form of water at that point, right?
I guess.
I guess.
And that was that rust. Iron was turning to rust. Okay, good. Okay, when we burn something, it becomes a different chemical. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fire and wood.
All right. Okay. All right. All right. So it becomes something different. Its makeup becomes a little different, right? Okay? Does that make sense? So we've got the physical and we've got the chemical. So it changes in some form, all right? Okay? So those are our changes in our matter. Okay? Matter also has properties. Right? There's volume. There's mass. And there's weight. Okay? We talked about volume as taking up space. Remember that? Okay? We talked today again about the difference between mass and weight. Weight is that gravitational pull. Remember that? Whereas mass is the amount of matter the object has. Okay? That makes sense? All right. The other thing we talked about was the three different states. What were the three states?
Three states of matter.
What were they? Liquid, solid, and gas. Okay? Liquid, solid, and gas. All right? Now, we talked about those three. We talked about how fast or how slow they move, right? Okay? Which one moved the slowest?
Solid.
Solid moved the slowest.
They don't hardly ever move.
So solid, liquid, and gas. So remember in the solid it was the slowest. The atoms are moving the slowest, right? They're packed in tighter. Remember that? Remember the pictures we drew?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm abbreviating things here. I'm not doing full details, right? Okay? The gas were the quickest. They're the farthest apart, fast moving. Okay? Liquid were more free flowing. Okay? And do you remember those pictures that we drew? You can go back in your notes and find those pictures. Are you writing things down? Okay? So those would be the three states that we talked about. All right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay? Those are some of the high points of what we discussed in matter. Okay? Alright.
Go back. Maybe.
Get your Chromebooks out.
It's LeBron James. LeBron James.
You guys at home? Are you logging into Kahoot? Oh, come on.
Game pin, 5, 6, 7, 8.
It'll pop up now.
You already in. Like, kids that have that is already in. No. Like, yeah.
Oh, come on.
Don't see that. You did not see that. It popped up on me
What? Oh, that's been a different way.
Horrible. So,
It popped up. Pounds. That's pounds. Pounds is what LBS is. Is that your question? Bring me your Chromebook so I know what you're talking about, will you? Yeah, who's got a question virtually? Eduardo?
What does it mean when it says round to the nearest whole number?
That means that you're going to take that number and round it to the nearest one. So again, if you don't understand that, you can bring that to school tomorrow and ask me for some help on that, okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, I mean, the most you guys have to have done is to fill in that first column, all of those different weights on the different planets. That is the most you have to have done, and I can take questions tomorrow if there's something else you don't understand. Okay? Okay, I'm ending the meeting.